Okay, welcome back. I don't know what happened. I have no idea what happened. But anyway, welcome back to the Masterclass. I was going on and on and on about how this is the 10-year anniversary of my school, Communication with All Life University, and how this is a great celebration of the school. Anyway, so today's topic is the energy field in your home. And are we almost stable? Are we stabilizing?
Okay, we're a little crooked.
Sideways?
We're a little crooked. I'm so
okay,
sorry, Pete.
That's all right.
We got a little nutty.
I'm kidding.
Hello again. Yay, you're back. Okay.
Hooray!
Yes, we're back.
I don't know what happened. Anyway, we just jumped off and we jumped back on. So we're just showing we can do that. Anyway, so the energy field of your home. This is, again, I think that some of what we did yesterday was so powerful because you're starting to see maybe how much you might be sending stuff. And we picked, a lot of people had questions and they put them in the video, and so we had to go scroll through 650 comments and find some of these. But these are really great questions. So I printed out 4 questions that I want to address before we go into the content for
There's
today.
more than that.
What's that?
Keep going.
There's what?
There's more questions than that. It just didn't.
Okay. Oh, so only a few printed, but we can see them.
I'll show them to you.
Okay, you can ask me, I guess, probably. All right. So how to handle your feelings and not putting them on your animals. Anxious owner, anxious dog. You know what? I'm not going to answer that right now because that's pretty much this whole class today. So I'll get to that through the content. And if you don't feel like that's answered, then we'll go back to that. And if you don't feel like this meditation today addresses that, we'll find some more things. Again, we have so many students in my program that have to get tapping. They have to get X amount of tapping done. So that may be helpful also. What is yours and what is the animal's? This is a great question. And we had someone in the program just recently discovered that, is that an important text?
Yeah.
Okay. Just recently discovered that it's really easy, and it's funny because I have so many dog trainers in here right now, and I love my dog trainers, but it's really easy to kind of blame the person. But often when we have animals that we just rescued or that there's something going on, then we still like to blame the human, but the truth is, I think of coming together often as like a cocktail, right? You put a little of this in and a little of that, and you've made a different drink. And that's what happens when we adopt animals often. So sometimes you're picking up on, Candace, who I don't know if she's in here, she said for the first time she realized that she was not the one driving the nervousness with the dog, that she was starting to feel the nervous tummy of the dog. And I've had that too. And I've had like waves of fear just come over me because of one of my animals, my horses in particular. And actually, I have a really interesting idea here to present to you. And this is related to the content, the Morphic Resonance. So have you ever walked outside and all of a sudden just gotten the chills? I always live somewhere where it's like open, or when I lived outside of Seattle, it was in the middle of the woods. I remember one time, now my barn was not that far from my house, right? And one time I walked out and I all of a sudden just felt complete chills. And I didn't know why I was terrified, but I let my dogs potty really quickly and I put them back in the house. And then my house was here and the barn was here and my car was here. I drove 90 feet down to the barn, tucked my horses in, and drove back. If I could have driven into the house, I would have. But what I thought about later was that whatever it was as afraid of me as I was of it. And I'm thinking, I think it was probably a cougar. It might have been a bear. but that what I did was I walked into that animal's fear. I walked into that animal's zone of fear. And has anyone else experienced that? Where you just gotten the chills? I'll tell a story in the content a little bit later about how that works. But so what is yours and what is the animal's is something that you always, always, always want to be checking in with. And in the meditation that we did yesterday and that we will continue to do, one of the best ways to know what is yours is to really, when we do the part about physically moving through the body and mentally moving through our thoughts and emotionally running through our feelings, you're going to start to figure out your baseline. Like, I wake up and do that every morning. I check in with myself. And the more you check in with yourself, you're going to understand you. And the more you have an animal communication where, you know, you're an autonomous being over here, your little animal friend or a big animal friend is an autonomous being over here, you're going to definitely start noticing what is yours and what is not yours. Any comments so far on this?
Yeah, Gretchen Dorothy says, yes, which addresses what you're saying right now. Yes, but I can't tell if that's my own irrational fears.
Again, we have worksheets all week of really checking in with yourself. And you'll know, just take a baseline all day long. One of the things in my Animal Communication Home Study course is start to recognize your own feelings, because if you can't recognize your own feelings, you can't identify them for another. So you have to start taking an assessment of yourself all day, every day. How do I feel about this? Here's some chocolate. How do I feel about this? There's a cute guy. How do I feel about that? Oh, there's a cute horse. How do I feel about that? Oh, somebody said something on Facebook that doesn't make me feel good. Like, we can't. One thing that I have a lot of my students do is when you feel overwhelmed, check in with that, because that's about 6 different feelings. So start breaking down what overwhelm is for you. What are those 6 feelings that created overwhelm? Is it excitement? Is it this? So if you have irrational fears, you've got to be able to say, I'm going to take my irrational fears and put them over here for 5 minutes. So now what am I feeling? And is this feeling mine if something else keeps coming up? I mean, it takes a long time. That's why my program's 1.5 years, right? It takes a long time to really be able to do that. Yes.
This is from Mary Jenny, which made me remember that a lot of the times what we're learning here also applies to our safety. She said she had felt fear. The hair on her neck stood up. She was hiking and a mountain lion was stalking her.
Yeah, exactly. And there's so many times that we make it up, that we make up stories when the truth is it might just be a wild animal that's as nervous as you. And that's interesting. I'm glad. I think Mary, she lives in Montana, right? Anyway. Yeah, I can imagine. Okay, so, and that gets into the content of this today. So, will communicating with my horse assist me in releasing my own fears about riding him after? I think I know who that is. That is, yes and yes. I have some ideas about that. When I get a message incorrect or wrong, I get very discouraged. Did you get messages wrong in the beginning? Okay, so I never say wrong, and I never say right, because if you were to sit in the energy of wrong or the energy of right, both of those are really uncomfortable, because right can only lead to righteousness, and that's gnarly. Wrong just makes us feel bad. So I use the words accurate and inaccurate, and I have a lot of what I'm looking for in my program with the advanced students is constantly hitting that level of accuracy. They say a psychic can only be 65% accurate all of the time, like overall. And I have to say that when I get off a call on Tuesday night with my advanced group, I always feel like, oh my God, they're like 85-90% accurate all the time. So yeah, of course. And that's where you have to keep practicing, and you cannot beat yourself up, and you can't live in the self-doubt. You know what I do? I have one of the greatest tools on the planet, and that's why we have these worksheets, because if you get used to the idea that I'll give you a really good example. If you start journaling this, and you have a journal, it's just dedicated to this. My students have to do this. They have proof, then anytime they have doubt, of all the other animal communication sessions that were good, that they felt they were accurate, that they have confidence. So keeping a journal becomes a physical representation of your work. And it's funny because I had this here the other day. We've created this little set. These are just my news clippings over the last 30 years of me out there talking to animals and being in the news, on the cover of things, stories, and all over the country. So if I ever doubt myself, I remember being in the Palm Beach Post, and my cute dog Olivia, who I miss every day. So sometimes if I ever have doubt about stuff, I just remember, yeah, I've done a few things. So having that physical proof sitting there is a really powerful tool, and the best thing you can do is start journaling.
This is touching on grief and projecting that grief onto your animals. Do you want to address that after these questions?
Yeah, there's a couple other questions.
Yeah, the next question is, do you also read animal owners in this process?
Okay, do I also read animal owners in this process? That's a great question. There are times when... Okay, I'll tell a little story. Years ago, I think this is in my first book. So I went to somebody's house, and they didn't tell me that the dog was an ankle biter, and that was really super aggressive. So when I walked in the door, the dog didn't bite me, and they were blown away. So already, I didn't know she didn't believe in animal communication. Anyway, the woman introduced me to her trainer, and she and the trainer and the dog and I walked upstairs and sat down. And it was a very lovely, beautiful home in South Florida. So I sat down, and the dog told me about this situation where the woman had been nearly murdered, and it looked like somebody the dog knew, and the dog couldn't protect her, and he hid under the bed, and that's why he freaks out at the door when somebody comes, because what didn't help, and he felt so helpless that now he overprotects. And there's a lot more involved. And the dog told me that she was in a witness protection plan, which I just couldn't even believe the dog told me that. So when I said those words out loud, she freaked out. And the trainer felt almost really uncomfortable sitting there. He was like, wow, should I leave? And so she had to admit to the trainer all the things that had happened to her, and it helped. It just moved everything forward, because the trainer was at a real loss also. And so did I have to read the person to find out she was in a witness protection plan? No, because in a way, I can tell if an animal is anxious, or if a person is anxious, or if a couple is fighting a lot, or all those things, because that's part of the animal's, what's going on for the animal. So I don't ever have to read the person. I just read the animal, and the situation starts to shift. What was the next?
The next question is...
I want to kind of talk about our stuff.
The next question is, this is from Carol Kurtz Darlington. She was told not to use her dog as a tapping surrogate and not to tap on a location where there might be a tumor.
Okay, that is such a big question. I do want to answer that, but I think what we'll do is want to get to the content, and I'll answer some of these afterwards, because that's involved. If my dog weren't so muddy from the hike, I would show you that I tap on her as a surrogate every day. But I prefer to tap on the animal that I'm tapping on, but because I do most of my work on the phone, I tap on my dogs every day.
And then there's another one that'll go with that, which is tapping into diagnosis. We'll answer that after. And then the last question is, are there multiple filters, or are we looking for the top one or the ones that affect us?
I love that. Are there multiple filters? So the multiple filters, yeah, there's multiple filters because we are layered, right? We aren't just one thing. So we could have, so in a lot of ways, I mean, we don't have like thousands of personalities or thousands of faces, but we might, you know, break through a filter of fear and discover that we've got a filter of mistrust, or we've got a filter of this or a filter of that, or we think, yeah, so there are layers. But again, going back to this self-awareness idea that like I'm going to identify my feelings all day long, you're going to start to really know yourself and know what to expect and things like that. So dropping a filter becomes pretty easy because you have such awareness of yourself. And I wanted to say that about, are there something about what is the question about the diagnosis?
Tapping into diagnosis, into an animal's diagnosis.
Okay, so are we tapping into an animal's diagnosis? Here's what I would say about that. We've got several veterinarians in this group, and really legally, no, I can't diagnose an animal, and I don't want to. You know, in quantum physics, if you don't look into a container, there's still possibility, right? Like, so to name something means sometimes it gives clarity, but sometimes it gives more danger. So I want to, I want to be able to share what the animal is experiencing. So if it does have like that tumor on the spleen, you're not going to necessarily feel that sort of, you're going to feel into it, so you could know that like, oh, that spleen feels full, or if the tumor breaks, or if there's been a broken leg on the right, at the left hip, you'll find the compensation pattern. The break may have already healed. So we're not diagnosing. That said, many of my advanced students, some people study with me privately for medical intuition, animal medical intuition, and then that's part of the advanced training in my big program for sure. And that takes a while. I mean, we won't get it this week. I wish I could. All right, so what I want to talk about is our energy field in our homes. And this is a really important topic because it goes back to, yes?
Sorry, people are asking about tapping on dogs. Could you elaborate, please? And is there video of you tapping on a dog?
We will post so many videos of me tapping on dogs. I've got more videos than anybody should have of me tapping on dogs. So I would be happy to provide that information. Absolutely. I've got videos of me tapping on horses. I've got a whole home study course with massive videos of me tapping on animals. So, and I'd love to share them, but I want to get to the material here. What?
That you're doing tapping tomorrow, aren't you? You're talking about tapping tomorrow?
I think so.
Yeah. So they can come back tomorrow and
yeah.
post the video, and then you'll show them also.
Yeah. So, okay. So note to self, clean dog.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, someone's getting a bath today. Okay, so anyway, and this will lead into tomorrow, right? Because this is such an important thing. So the thing about what I discussed yesterday, as far as like sending and receiving versus being animal communication. So when we think of, some of you are old enough to remember that there used to be an old advertisement for RKO or something like that, where, and Claudia's too young, but anyway, it's a tower, and it's like there's, oh, you do remember? Okay. So anyway, there's like lightning bolts, and it's like the tower is just vibrating, right? That is all of us. And it's a broadcasting tower. So It's sending radio waves out and it's receiving radio waves. That is us. That is us at all times. So that goes back to what I was saying yesterday as far as animal communication is sending and receiving pictures, words, and feelings, right? It's the transference of all those things. So we are being that at all times. We can never not be that. But we can make decisions about how we want to be. And so what I love to say about this is I'm going to choose to be the emotional leader in this, because again, going back to what I was talking about yesterday with the idea that packs, dogs have, wolves, packs, there's herds, there's flocks, there's prides, and there's usually a leader. And so a majority of us are female. There's several men in here, which we love. What are the, a lot of times we don't identify with that idea of alpha. Assertive, yes, but that alpha thing is not always something that people identify with. So how do we then lead? And I like to call it being the emotional leader, being in check. So this goes back to what I was saying earlier about always having that sense of self, always knowing where you are. What am I feeling right now? Because you know what? There are so many things we don't even identify that we're actually feeling in a day that we can't understand how much we're affecting our household. And so I always say, and I'll walk us through this, that I like to, if I'm the emotional leader, then I'm going to set the thermostat in the household for harmony. And let's walk through this. So, if you think of a thermostat and you leave it at 68 or 70, and I, of course, in my house, love to leave my house tropical, so it's a little higher. But if you're leaving the thermostat on at 70, it means that if you open the door and it's freezing outside, the heat is going to heat the house and keep it at 70. It means if it's hot outside, the house is still going to stay 70. So the thermostat maintains the household, the temperature of the household. So if, as emotional leaders and energy healers and animal communicators, we are setting the thermostat in our household for harmony, it means everybody gets to be who they are. One cat can still be grieving, and another person can be excited about a new job, and a dog can be pretty proud of themselves for what they did at dog training. And it doesn't mean that the whole house is going to go into this crazy excitement of the new job, which can lead to nervousness, which can lead to a bunch of other things. Nor does it mean that the household is going to swing to the grief of the cat. So it's when we look at our household, we're living in an energy field that now has its own emotional intelligence and its own energetic kind of imprint in the universe. And right now, we have our own energy field around this group that we've all come together. If you think, Dr. Sheldrake used to, he did a big experiment in London, and he wrote a book called Dogs Know When Their Owners Are Coming Home. And that experiment was based on the idea that he took a number of people who had dogs at home, and he put a time-stamped camera in the house and a time-stamped camera at their job in London. And everybody who normally left their job at, say, 5 o'clock left their office at a different time with the intention of going home. So maybe it was at 3:12 or 4:17 or 9:12 or 5:10. But every single animal got up and sat by the door at the minute mark or within a few minutes of their person leaving their job. And so he proved that there's an energy field connected between us, and what he calls morphic resonance. And so I like to say that and that morphic resonance has its own life. It has its own emotional code, its own intelligence. And so I believe our households are that same sort of thing. I mean, he's proven it. And so if we're the emotional leader, then we can direct where that energy goes. I remember about 2 years ago, I can't believe it, it'll be 2 years, end of March, when Isabella died, my black lab, I'd already brought Abby in. And I really watched this because it was, while we were all sad, it was really cool to watch that one of us might not be grieving so badly and might be functioning better. And maybe the cats were still really sad, but the dogs, we were still trying to carry on. And then another time the cats would be doing better and I'd be doing poorly and the dogs were doing okay. And then another time, like, we were all where we were and nobody tried to fix anybody. And we just really, like, I feel like we perfected grief at that point. Yes.
That's a great, there's a question, someone who lost her dog.
Mm-hmm.
And one of her dogs, and she's grieving and she doesn't want to project her grief. It's very difficult to grieve from my own, and what is her grief and what is mine? The other dog's the one that survived. I do not want to put my grief on her. How do I handle this? Which is what you were.
Yeah, and I think that if you follow through with this, you'll hear what it is, because I'll get to that in a moment. So what I'd really love to so I'm just talking about grief, but there's other things that affect us that we walk through every day. So what I'd love to hear are some of the things that people feel like affect them, and then they go walk into their home with that. So it could be good and it could be bad. And I don't even like good or bad, because I don't believe when it comes to emotions, you will never hear me talk about negative emotions, because I think all emotions are fantastic, because thank God we're alive and we have them. However, some of them can get a hold of us. And so I want to hear what you think you walk outside and maybe affects you and you bring it home. Not just grief, because I'll be able to show this here in a moment. So is anybody tapping into what affects you? I mean, yeah, we'll give it a second here. You? What affects you?
Me?
Yeah.
If I get angry about someone cutting me off on the
freeway,
or on the street or the freeway, or
so you're one of those drivers?
No, I'm not one of those. But if I get upset, or let's just say I'm upset about something that happened,
Mm-hmm.
and I bring that in the house.
Okay. Anything? Anyone else?
Yes. Fear.
Mm-hmm.
Some people bring home anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
Interpersonal relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Irritation.
Mm-hmm.
Big one for me. Stress with the kids. Another one.
Mm-hmm.
Health concerns.
Health concerns.
Overload of people at her PT job. The weather makes her crappy.
I moved from Seattle, so you're speaking to the choir, because I was, oh my God.
Feeling unsafe with new people. Gail Boone says, interesting, as people are responding, her heart rate is increasing.
Okay, see, this is interesting to watch. Like, we get affected by things, and then we bring that in our household. And so some of the other things that I want to point out that are also affect our energy field are things like, what are you laughing at?
It's a political comment.
Okay. One of the things that can affect our energy field is also something like pesticides, bad foods, right? The toxins in our foods. So we have all sorts of things around us that are affecting our energy field and often depleting. And anything else in there?
Actually, this is funny, but she said, I once had my dog convinced he was seriously ill because I thought he was. He wasn't. Who's fine?
I don't mean to laugh.
Me either, but
That is funny.
But that's...
but it's real. And I had somebody who was convinced her dog was so depressed. When she called me, she actually called me for a phone session. I didn't know her. She called and said her dog was so depressed and was lifeless, and that she thought she should put him down. And when I did an animal communication session with him, we found out that 2 of his vertebrae were out, and he went to my friend Jill Todd, the veterinarian that is my co-founder of Jill and Joan CBD for animals. Anyway, she did acupuncture and laser therapy, cold laser. And if you live in the Seattle area, she rocks the planet, and she does house calls. Anyway, yeah, the dog was fine. So, yeah, there's things. So the emotion of others, in other words, could affect our well-being, our energy field. Yes. Anything else in there?
A lot of big changes in the past year, and it's thrown the whole household off. So.
Yeah. So there are a lot of things that we do every single day. And I say this all the time, like, I could get another book deal tomorrow and I could be super excited. And if you think about, like, I don't know if you've ever seen this at the dog park, but sometimes a couple of dogs can be, like, really excited. And then one comes in and, like, all of a sudden they're like, right? Like big growling, and it's suddenly not so fun anymore. Right? So those big emotions can have a big effect on the energy field, on our own energy field, and on our animals. And it doesn't mean that you can't be big and be excited and have fun, but it means you want to be mindful of what that effect is going to have on the household. Same with anger. Now, I love my anger, so when I have my anger, I'm just like, it's juicy, it's rich, it's passionate, it's awesome. And there's a ton of cuss words. And you know what happens here in my household when I get angry? My animals roll their eyes. Oh, brother, there she goes again. Because they know it has nothing to do with them. So we're going to do a meditation here in a little bit that is what I call almost like a container. And I call it the gathering because we're gathering all of our energy. And it's what I do when I'm out in the wild with wildlife because, again, you know, I've taken people on dolphin trips. I did 10 years of dolphin trips, and I did 8 years of dolphin trips, and I've done now Botswana, Borneo, South Africa, Kenya, Namibia. Like, I've taken people a lot of places, and when our energy field is like, you know, the first time you're in the water and there's a dolphin swimming right there, you can't help but to be like, oh my God. But what is that going to do to that dolphin, right? That dolphin's going to be like, see ya, wouldn't want to be ya. So that's where our ability to identify our emotions and have some, not control, but containment around it, is one of the biggest things that creates us to be the emotional leader and therefore have a good effect on the household. What were you going to ask?
No, I was going to actually respond to this. It's about, question again is, how do we know we're not projecting, which is, we'll get to through this week.
Yeah, that's, I mean, it's a lot of, maybe she could give us an example of what specifically.
I look at my dog, I look at my dog often and think she's not having any joy at the moment and not having fun walking. But I think that if she's not feeling joy, it's a mirror to me. So I guess my question is, how do we know we are not projecting?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's a mirror and sometimes it's not. Sometimes it really is a projection. And again, I think just spend this week really walking through all your feelings. Walk through all your feelings. Just take that time to be like, wow. Like for me, I have to say that doing this, I wake up so excited. And I have a friend that I've been checking in with. I've been telling her, I'm going to bed so I have 8 hours of sleep. Right? Like, I know I normally drag my ass to bed, right? That's the truth, because I don't feel like going to bed because I suddenly get a second wind. But lately I'm like running to bed. I'm excited to sleep because I'm excited to wake up because I'm excited to do this. And so that was really fun for me to notice, like, why is this different? Why am I so excited about this? And so that's the sort of thing that, I'm noticing. And that's all I can do. And when we start to know who we are in it, we can know who another is. But we can't know another until we know ourselves. And it really is, it comes down to that. And otherwise we're always enmeshed and always projecting. But anyway, this is so important. If you just want to communicate in your own home or communicate with others and help them, being able to walk your talk is one of the most important things you can do, because I have problems and I love to share them, but I like to share them once I've walked through. Is there changing the diet? Is there training involved? Is there some sort of healing modality involved? Did I tap on it, right? Like, I'm going to look at it like anybody that's old enough to remember Lazy Susans. Lazy Susans, you can put all your stuff on and you can find your ingredients. Well, that's to me what I think of as like my healing toolkit, is that I've always got a Lazy Susan, and it's like I'm going to turn it a little and maybe it's food, and I'm going to turn it a little and maybe it's training, and I'm going to turn it a little and maybe it's herbs, or you know what I mean, essential oils, whatever it is. Maybe it's tapping. But there are a lot of things that are energy, but right now we want to be talking about our own energy management and our own energy field, and how that is directly corresponding to our animals' energy. So what I want to do is actually do the meditation that I'm talking about, because many of the people that have done this meditation, that have gone on my wildlife trips or have gone through my program, have really benefited from this meditation, not just out in the wild, but also with their home. So I'm almost ready. What is where
everybody's loving, we cannot know another until we know ourselves. So
true.
I think we're good to go into
the meditation.
Okay, this is a question that I think we're going to save for the Q&A on Saturday.
Okay.
Helen, we will answer that question at the Q&A on Saturday, so I will write it down and make sure Joan gets to it.
Okay, who is it?
Helen Fulcher.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Because I could, oh my God, I could answer questions all day. I think that's why I get excited, because it's like, what will happen? Okay, so, is everybody ready to meditate? Are we ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I want you to take a very deep breath. And again, breathing into the bottom of your feet, just feel into your physical being for a moment. Your whole physical body. Become aware of your physical being. Do you have any aches or pains? Can you let those go for a moment? Can you put them in a bubble and have them float away? And how about any big feelings, especially any feelings we had about talking about what makes us anxious? Let's just go ahead and have those float away in a bubble. And have our thoughts put in a bubble and just have them float away. And now on this inhale, I want you to imagine you are bringing your entire energy field, your aura, into your center. And on this exhale, I want you to imagine you are letting your energy field out. On this next inhale, bring your energy field in. On this next exhale, go ahead and let your energy field back out again. Bring your energy field in for the next 5 breaths and let your energy field out on the exhales. And now I want you to bring your energy field into the center on the inhale, and then I want you to keep it in the center. I want you to gather up all of your energy and bring it to your center. And on the exhale, don't let your energy field back out. And do that for the next few breaths so that all of your energy is in your center. And I want you to feel what that feels like for a moment, to have all of your energy pulled in. Because in the wild, whether you're part of the ecosystem as predator or prey, at some point you know what it is to energetically go invisible. So right now, you're feeling what it feels like to be invisible and yet still part of an ecosystem. And that ecosystem is your own home. So from this still point, this very centered place, I want you to imagine that your heart is so full and that the energy from your heart is actually leaving a little bit outside of your body, going in front of your chest, and the energy is going around your body as if it's just hugging your shoulders and your arms, and you're going to make a circle of the energy circling around your body of just absolute gratitude, feeling that stream of gratitude just circling your body, circling and expanding that gratitude out until you've filled the room with gratitude in a big continual heart-centered circle, swirling out into your neighborhood and sending that gratitude out to your city and sending that gratitude out into your state or your country till we all meet up with gratitude, because there's so many people in this call, in this Facebook group, that are from around the world. So we're connecting up with gratitude with everybody here. We are each covering the globe. So our Morphic Resonance is completely connecting in absolute gratitude. And start bringing that circle of gratitude back. slowly swirling it back till it's just reaching around and hugging your own shoulders and back into your body. And take a couple more breaths where your energy field is still contained. And now in the next few exhales, I want you to let your energy field back out into its buoyant place, as if it's been cleaned and cleared. And go ahead and wiggle your fingers and your toes and come back into the room. We do that a lot with on my dolphin trips, and one time, knowing that I know how to kind of go invisible like that and to collapse my energy field, I was out actually fixing fences where I used to live in Carnation, and me fixing fences means that I was probably going out with hay twine and Velcro because my toolkit looks like a Barbie toolkit. There's probably my toolbox is actually an old makeup box, but anyway, so I don't know what I thought I was going to do, and I don't know why I went way out into this pasture without my dogs. Like, were my dogs in the house? Anyway, I went out to this area that I thought was a fairy garden, and I walked into this like, oh, there's fear, there's fear, there's fear, this isn't mine, there's fear. And I stopped, and I pulled my energy field in, I pulled my energy field in, and then over there was a doe about 3 days old, and over there was a baby deer about maybe a year old, and there was no mother. I didn't want to scare anybody, but I was only eyeballs at that point, and I just kept pulling my energy field in and pulling my energy field in, and do you know, I became a human maypole. They came over in pure joy to check me out and danced around me, and I dared not even take a breath because I didn't want to interrupt that absolute joy that they then filled me up with. And that's one of my favorite memories ever of connecting with wildlife on such a profound level. So this is not only a useful tool of when you know you're all in your stuff, just pull it all in, and you really are going to start to notice whether it's yours or another's. But it's also an unbelievable technique for when you're out, because then you really get to be the observer in wildlife. And many times that's all we want to be in our own household. What if we could be the observer of what joy our animals are having? And so anyway, that is it. I know that it's, when I have to, I just pull my whole field in. There are times when I see a car accident or something where I know somebody could use my energy. I literally take my energy and there, you need it, because I know I'll regenerate it. So when our field of energy is in a really good space, it can be used for good. And so it's always a matter of having, like I said, a lazy Susan, some tools, some techniques, some things that are going to put you back on track to ground you, and then ways to contain your energy field.
So Devasri Sarkar says, so do I get this right? If I pull my energy field in, I'm kind of reducing my presence and making myself more approachable.
Totally. That's a great question, yeah.
And then while someone asked, described pulling your energy in, and she said, is it kind of like visualizing your aura getting big and small?
Exactly. And you know what, at first it's a visual, but then it becomes so, you feel it. Maybe some other people can share if they felt it.
Everybody's saying incredible, thank you, this is beautiful, that's amazing, thank you. Someone said, I saw the world surrounded by a blue light globe.
Oh, I love that. That was so delicious. I almost didn't want to leave that. Like, it was like, wow. And you know what's so cool is last night I noticed that people were watching the video and answering. Like, I knew they were in India and other parts of the world. So it's like, what I feel like is going to happen is this gratitude is going to like, it's going to go all day. It's going, it's going to be a continuum.
There was a story, Selena Brown said that her bunnies just jumped for joy.
I love that.
And, someone said that at some point she felt cold energy with her.
Cold energy? Maybe, I would need a little more information, I think, to understand what cold, it could be that it's, I don't think it's good or bad, but it's just really interesting. Like, when we don't define what we think it is, it's really interesting to explore into energy.
Anna Bryant always says she saw swirls of blues and indigos when she pulled in her energy, and when we connect, my heart feels full.
I love that.
And Helen Folger says, I love the feeling of connection with everyone in the group.
Me too. And we do that a lot on the wildlife trips because when we're able to connect up, then we're a really solid morphic resonance. And I can't tell you, every trip I've ever been on, the guides or the captain of the dolphin always noticed how many animals would come around us, how many more would come because of this.
The Gentle Barn that day.
Oh, in the Gentle Barn, we did, I'd take people over to the Gentle Barn for healing, and we did something called the Scalar Wave, which is one of the things I teach. We had, tell what that magic was.
It was surreal and almost out of body, but one of the volunteers came up to us and said that they have never felt the animals so calm and quiet while we were doing this, and at the Gentle Barn, which is hundreds of animals, and they were just all from the top barn to the bottom. Yeah,
we did, what I did was I planted myself in the center, and I gave the directions to the teacher trainers, and everybody worked on animals all around, and it was like
insane.
It was crazy, and it was just like the whole place just went power down.
Yeah.
And I like to think of that like powering down, because there's so many other times that we need our energy, and our big energy is awesome. There's nothing wrong with it. But knowing how to power down like that is what makes baby leopards sit next to the Jeep and cheetahs want to get in, and it was safe. But, I swear one time I swam with 65 dolphins. It was crazy. And there was one point I thought, should I be scared? Nah. Me and 6 other people in 65 dolphins for 3 hours. I was wrinkled.
Gretchen Dorothy says, yes, her heart full almost overwhelmingly, but her core feels very dense, almost physically heavy. Is that grounding?
Yeah, very grounded. Are you typically grounded? Because I guess that would be the question. And that it is something that, like, I'll tell you, I saw on Facebook last night that somebody's cat had died, and it was a very young cat. It was something that my own cat, Henry, had experienced, and I went to bed so, like, aware of everybody in my household. Like, we almost did, like, a little head count of, like, how lucky we all were and where we were. But it starts with me being grounded and having, containment of my energy field, and then getting into this deep space, literally a deep space with my others. And these are all, this is a step-by-step, we're Yesterday we talked about what we're sending and receiving. Today we're learning how to be in a really profound way. Tomorrow we're going to add tools. We're going to talk to animals in the next couple of days. We're just walking through what it takes to really do and be this. What time is it?
We have 6 minutes left.
Okay. So let's go back to that grief. She had asked about if you're feeling grief, how do you know if it's yours or the other? If you've both experienced something, I talk about this all the time, and this was really when I was working on my book, Energy Healing for Animals, I spent a lot of time working on this exact thing, because it was when I was coming up with this whole idea of like emotional leadership, and I always say set the pH to harmony, the potential for harmony, set the pH of your household. Anyway, my dog Olivia, and I think I told the story last week, but it's worth telling again. My dog Olivia and I had been, my ex-husband and I picked her out, so she lived with me, David, kids, a cat, beautiful home in Denver. We got separated, me and David did. So she suddenly was just with me. We were sad. Then we got back together with him, and we were together for several more years down in Florida. Then we break up. We were sad. I moved to Seattle. My dog was too frail. My dad was too frail to bring my dogs around much. And I had to, somewhere in there we lost a cat. We were sad. We lost stepkids. We lost a beautiful home. The ex-husband she was sad about. We had losses that we shared. Now my dad's sick, and for several years I took him to doctor's appointments. I'd go take him stuff. I didn't take her because she was, she's a big dog, medium size, and I couldn't take her into hospitals and doctor's appointments, so she didn't come with me a lot. Anyway, when he died, I was really sad, and I watched her go down. And as I watched her go down, I realized she was getting sad about something that wasn't hers. And so I really said to her, you know what? I need you to be the dog. I need you to get me out. I need what we're each bringing to this party is so important. I, of course, have the food, but you're bringing the joy. And I'm going to grieve, and it's going to be okay. And all the things that you are going to help me as I experience this. And when I'd see her kind of slip into it, then I would just put her in a little energetic bubble and myself in a bubble. And I have videos about that, and I have a blog about that. So I will put that in here about creating bubbles, because it's really important to be able to differentiate from each other so that we're not enmeshed. Because you know what, like going to something like anxiety, you're going to have, and it goes back to how to handle your feelings and not put them on your animal. An anxious owner and an anxious dog are going to have anxiety for two separate reasons. So again, starting to identify, let's start with the self. Why am I anxiety? Why am I anxious? And you can start to journal about that, and maybe some of it will dissipate, and then hopefully you can understand why the dog is, and you've got some tools and start to break that down. But we have to start with ourselves. And any other questions, comments, observations?
No, I just want to wrap things up by reminding people that the worksheet is there for you to practice with, and that, remember to journal. It's really important, and it's mostly for your own reference to kind of see where you're at.
Yeah, thank you guys. I've had so much fun, and I'm hoping that you had fun, and I look forward to tomorrow, where we're going to get down and get dirty and do some big fun.
On a clean dog.
On a clean dog.